Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Amy. And if my voice is a little off, I lost my voice this weekend from talking too much, but there was loud music. So I was trying to talk over the music. But I mean, I literally was whispering for a full day. So
Oh, goodness. Well, I'm glad you got your voice
I'll
back.
try to get close to the computer so not everyone has to listen to my froggy voice.
Yeah, so lots of fun was had, I
Lots of
hear
fun
from
was
your
had. Lots of people
what?
seen. Yeah, I need to
Good.
go down and reflect and think again and write things down. And yeah,
Yeah. Well, it was great seeing you in Omaha. You were nice enough to come to the Gratitude Summit last
it was
week.
amazing. I
Was
loved
it?
it. Yes.
Good.
So for
Good.
the
I spent
listeners, Amy organized and I was participant. So this is the first time and I took off because my son picked me up. Amy was doing all of her organizing and making sure things were in order. So we really haven't regrouped.
We haven't. And I will say, being immersed in it for the whole day, I was hoping the participants were getting out of it what I was getting out of it. And I had three different experiences through the day, three different presentations, and some of them I liked better than others. So anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It was very good. A
Good.
lot of great insights, a lot of good reminders, looking at gratitude,
Yeah.
not just as just I always refer back to the words, like I think I said this with kindness. It's really cool to have a t-shirt that says be kind, but do we really think about what it means? Same with
Right.
grateful. How many people grateful, blessed? Yes, but do we
Yeah.
practice it? Right?
Yes. Yes. And so one of the things that there were several insights through the day, um, but this gratitude journal that we gave everybody, and then this little book, the little book of gratitude, both have some very good exercises in them to help you be more grateful. And there's lots of statistics about gratitude. And the presenter, Dr. Emmons, Robert Emmons,
Mhm.
um, he started doing research back in, I think, in the 80s on gratitude, and there wasn't much research at that time. And then he's kind of become one of the leaders and one of the experts in this. Um, but some of the statistics, and I didn't write down the statistics. Are they in the book? Do you know?
I
I
think they
can't
are in
remember.
the book. The book had definitely had the science I found really good too, because sometimes the books don't always have the science behind it. And having the neuropsychologist from QLI there was very good. And they both knew the science, but then they knew the real stories too. So it was such a good mix. There was some in here though, I thought.
I'm trying to look. I know that it was an increase. So some of the things that caught my mind was the increase in productivity, the less depression. I can't find all the statistics. He had a slide up that said all of these things are affected when you have a more grateful perspective.
Right.
Which was which I'm going to say I wasn't surprised. I was surprised about productivity. Oh, the other one that surprised me was fewer accidents, work accidents.
Right.
I was like, wow, a decrease in work accidents when you have a culture of gratitude at your office. And I was like, that's really interesting. I don't know how they correlated that, or like how do you
But
make
they
that?
just so there were videos, and I don't know if any of these videos are posted on Twitter or Instagram, but they were very well done. And the very first one, it seems so simple, but there was an employee, and she was a professional. I think she was a physical therapist, and she had moved to town, and she was questioning whether she was doing a good job. And not only did she get a note saying thanks for all you do, they shared what other colleagues were making comments about specific instances, that it wasn't just, hey, pat on the back, you're doing a great job. It was recognizing contributions. And sometimes when you just do your thing in work or professional life, you're just doing your thing. You're trying to do a good job. And when people recognize specific things like, wow, you put that client at ease, or
Right.
that was a really stressful situation, and thank you for having my back rather than throwing me under the bus, and
Right.
just those specific words of just people think it, but they don't always say it, or time gets away, write them down. And the lady who kept thank you cards in her purse
Mm-hmm.
and or post-it notes, which part of this packet were post-it notes that say thank you, is when you think about them later, even though you couldn't say it at the time because maybe there was a client there, somebody had to leave for another meeting, it's not too late to show gratitude and try to remember those little things and say them later because they have a huge impact.
Yes. And one of the participants asked the question about how to give gratitude without just giving it lip service. And what you just highlighted was one of the answers of you have to be specific and you have to be authentic. Like you can't just say, thank you, thank you for that, or thank you, I appreciate you, and send a note. That doesn't, that feels like lip service.
Right. It's
I
like
feel like
just a
I'm checking
Hallmark
this.
card that's not personalized.
Yes. It's like I'm checking this off the box. I'm supposed to send gratitude out to all these people each week. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Instead of saying, I appreciate you. And here's why I appreciate you. And make it be something authentic and specific to them so that it feels real.
So an example I'll give that you just made me think of, because I was thinking of the Hallmark card, right? Which are great, but
Yes.
think about all the thank yous we get in the mail. Okay. I can tell you one goes back, gosh, 12 years by now, because it was my son Zach's graduation. One of his friends sent me a thank you note, and he was very specific, and he was actually kidding. He's like, thanks for all the drink fest in the basement, but really, Mrs. Lane, you're always the mom who we knew we could call that would come pick us up. But I'll always remember that thank you. I couldn't
Yeah.
even remember who else I got thank yous from where they said, thank you for your gift of money. I'm going to use it for a car. Okay.
Right.
That's telling me what they're going to do with it. But that's, and I know they're grateful they said thank you. And then I remember another one that came from another son's friend that said he used a specific instance, and he said, you really made me feel welcome when it was a tough time. He used this example. I
Right.
hold on to those. I still have those thank you notes. And
Right.
because they specifically told me, and it was authentic. Like I
Yeah.
knew that I had done something for them that I wanted to do. But think about those thank you notes. You can be grateful for someone, you can say much appreciated, but if from the heart you tell them why, they will always remember it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. 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 I think that's so true. The nice, thoughtful. Okay. So in this, I could just repeat what you said, and I don't want to repeat what you said. That's why I was like, okay, I'm going to move on
We're gonna
because
move on because
I
we got the
love,
whole thing. You're getting
I
Sandy getting excited
love,
about love gratitude. So this is good stuff.
I do too. And so a few perspective changes on gratitude because for me, it's really easy to look around and say, um, express gratitude. But there were some exercises that made me go, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. And in the journal that they gave, one was the absence of blessing. Did you do this one at all?
I
Did
have
he?
not done any of the exercises yet. I read the book of
Okay.
gratitude, but then I literally unpacked my little care package.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. That's fine. Okay, so the absence of blessing is you think of an aspect of your life, and what one of the things that they're very specific about is gratitude, expressing gratitude for things that are outside of your control, that somebody else has brought into your life, or something, or someone, or if you're spiritual, your faith is brought into your life, but there's all these things that can come into your life that you have no control over. And that's how you express gratitude for those things, not, oh, I'm thankful I could tie my shoes this morning, because
Right.
that's you doing it.
Right.
So that's the key to this gratitude concept. And this absence of blessing is, think about an aspect of your life for which you feel grateful, then write about the ways in which this might never have happened. And what would have happened if I had never met this person? If
Right.
I had never moved to Nebraska, if I had never all of these things that you could be grateful for, and recognizing if they weren't in your life, what that would look like.
Kind of like, didn't he call it the Charles George Bailey effect? Because in It's a Wonderful Life, at the
Yeah.
end, he thought everything was bad, and then he looked at life as though that hadn't happened. And there were some really good examples that were given. I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember which one I had used. Well, you know what I used? What if I didn't have my dog? What would
Right.
my life look like? Look at all the joy that he brings, even though I
Yeah.
complain like, oh, I got to be the one who walks him, and that takes an hour every day.
Right.
What would my life look like if I didn't have my dog? Which is very sad.
Right. Exactly. It makes you reflect and really appreciate the little things in your life, and the big stuff. One of the exercises when we were doing this in the morning, Janine went through, um, what would happen if she had never moved to Nebraska, and she moved here. Did she do that in the
She
afternoon?
did, yes.
Oh, okay. So maybe it was in the afternoon. And because I was texting Mike at this time, because she started talking about, well, if I had never moved to Nebraska, I wouldn't have married this really great guy. I wouldn't have. And she started talking about all the things that she's experienced since she moved here that were all so positive. And um, when she was doing it, her husband was watching virtually, and I knew that. So I was texting him and I was like, "Are you watching this?" Or I wanted to make sure you were catching it. And he was like, "I am." And I was like, "I'm so glad," because it was so, like, you can see, like, some people might like, "Oh, I moved to Nebraska. The weather's cold." Like, there's so many,
Right,
the Huskers don't win football. Like, there's so many things
right.
that, but then it's like, oh, but all of this good stuff happened because I did this. So she
I
put a
love
positive
it.
spin on it. I know. And so that absence of blessing, I thought that was a really nice way to look at stuff.
You know, the other thing I wrote down, I'm looking at my little notes here that struck me, is they said to have prospective gratitude, like think in the mindset of being grateful of what's to come. And it's kind of similar to hope, right? And
Right.
as humans, we need hope to look forward, but prospective gratitude, have that gratitude mindset rather than dreading and saying, oh gosh, I've got a pack and I've got to do all this stuff. I've got nothing fun. So what's the look forward, look for the gratitude before it's there, right? And be
Right.
positive about that.
So, Sandy, that future looking is, I think, something very key, and being able to see the good that's going to come in the future. On day 4 of the gratitude journal, they actually have looking to the future, and you choose an activity that may be ending soon. And knowing that this chapter is going to end soon, what is it that you're going to miss about this experience? It could be an activity, an event, an experience, a relationship. And so looking at that, and I've been doing this, especially, well, yesterday I did it when I was on my walk,
Right.
because I was like, oh, it can be an activity like this. And I know that my walk is getting ready to end. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not going to walk again till tomorrow. So, what is it that I'm grateful for in this walk that I'm going to miss the rest of the day? And it's the quiet time. It was the breeze, the leaves, the sunshine, the warmth. It was just this whole feeling of content. And I was like, I'm so grateful for this time,
Right.
uh, because I'm going to miss this the rest of the day because it's hard to get that in the busyness of the day.
And I tell you that for me, I can get stressed. Like I have my quiet time, my meditation, my reading in the morning, and then I start thinking about my day and I'm looking at my calendar. And the best strategy to get me in the best mindset to back to paying it forward to other people is to get in a grateful mindset. Just, hey, this is all good. You can do this. Perspective,
Yeah.
gratitude. Hey, be grateful that I have the clients. Be
Right.
grateful that I've got nobody is a pain in the ass, be grateful that I get a Zoom with my mom. Some people don't have their mothers, just, and it puts me in a completely different state of mind than feeling harried because I have things on my calendar. How am I going to fit the dog walk in? I'm getting my flu shot at 11. How is this all going to work? And just chill the hell out and
Right,
say, I'm
right,
grateful that I've got all this stuff.
right. I love that.
And
Chill the hell out.
there was
Yes.
there was and it kind of reminds me of the whole thought of power of positive thinking, but it's specific to gratitude, right? And it's a mindset, and it's a healthy mindset where it's back to the value being reciprocal. How I always talk about value is important, but you got to value other people too. Well, that's what gratitude really does. It's a reciprocal valuing. It's not just all about yourself because you're valuing others, other things. Almost always you're impacted by something or someone. But I remember running a half marathon with my two young cousins, and it was hard and it was hot. And you get to the point in any type of a physical exertion that you just want to give up, or you're like, it's not that big of a deal if we walk, or oh my gosh. And we actually started
Yeah.
pumping each other up. And it was almost, we were doing it almost to be not funny, but like we kept bringing up things where I said, you know what? We just saw somebody that's in a wheelchair. They're doing this. We should be happy we have legs to run on. We should be happy. Look at all these beautiful things. We should be grateful that we have eyes to see with. But we said everything that, oh my gosh, how can we not run our hardest until we get to the end? Because we have so many great things. My knees don't hurt.
Yeah.
We have each other that we're talking to. What do we have to complain about? And pretty soon, before we knew it, we were done. But we talked about everything we were grateful for and how we were more blessed to run than complaining about, well, is it that big of a deal if I stop, or this is awful? Who talked
Right.
us?
Right. Right. That's awesome. What a great story. I love that. I will tell you, I am, packing to move, and we've lived in Nebraska for 24 years, and I am looking to the future with excitement, but I'm also looking to the future and this whole knowing that relationships will not be ending, but shifting because
Right.
I'm not going to be in the area. And I will tell you, I have 8 dear friends that we have been meeting once a month for 22 years. And we've been gathering. And 22 years, a lot's happened. We've seen children born, children were in preschool at the time. They're all grown up, they're getting married, they're having grandchildren, so it's been a lot. And we've had divorces, death, we've had all of that. Um, and so I've been trying to figure out how to express gratitude for each of them before I leave.
Okay.
I
And how are you
know.
doing
And it's,
that? Or are you still thinking about it?
well, this is what I'm doing, and this is going to get posted probably the day I'm giving them their gift. They're nice enough to throw a going away party for us. But prior to that, I had up a plant. So when we went through our initial formation of this group, we were like in an 8-week class together, and then we started meeting monthly. So during this class, as a gift at the end, we got a plant. And Sandy, it's the only plant I've kept alive for
Really?
22 years. Yes, I still have the plant, and I can send you a picture of it because I'm like, I have this plant. And I always cut off the ends of it and I put them in water just for decoration around the house. And then I usually toss them after they get roots because I don't need to plant them anywhere else. Actually, I have one other up here. But so anyway, this plant has just been flourishing for 22 years and low maintenance. I love it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip ends for each of them, and I'm going to give them all my vases. I'm going to clean out all my vases and give it to them. But then I'm writing something about each of them. And this exercise of looking to the future and what it's going to be like without them and what I'm going to miss is really helpful because I want to write a note for each one of what I'm going to miss about each of them specifically.
Nice.
And that's the hardest part right there, because that's where I start to get emotional and
Right.
I start to realize because gratitude, real gratitude, can be emotional, especially if you know that you're going to lose that thing that you're grateful for, that you're not going to have that in your life every day.
Right. And there was one part in this book where they talked about, can gratitude be when they're bad? Not that this is a bad thing that's happening, but we tend to think about it only with positive and gratitude myths.
Yeah.
Find this. So I think this would be really got me thinking. So I'd be curious your thoughts on this. Hold on. Is gratitude even possible in the midst of adversity or suffering? Now, again, what you're talking about is an adversity or suffering, but it's hard, right? And it's emotional.
Right.
But even when there is bad times, that it's almost like are you being disrespectful by having a gratitude attitude in the midst of adversity or suffering? Because it's better to show adversity or suffering. I can't talk. He says, I once asked people suffering from severe neuromuscular disorders to keep a gratitude journal over 2 weeks. Given that much of their lives involved intense discomfort and visit to pain clinics, I wondered whether they'd be able to find anything to be grateful for. Not only did they find reasons to be grateful, but they also experienced significantly more positive emotions than a similar group who didn't keep a gratitude journal. The gratitude group felt more optimistic about the upcoming week, more connected with each others, which I think is huge, even though many of them lived alone, and reported getting more sleep, an important indicator of overall health and well-being. So he said, again, this gratitude myth is being debunked. Science verifies that we can cultivate or maintain an attitude of gratitude in hard times, and we will be better for it. So I like it back to the science that they had two groups, right? Yeah. The connection, I think, is huge because, again, there's a lot of things, but most everything, even the things, have a background of a person, and a core human need is to feel a part of something. Yeah. And when they looked at it from a gratitude aspect, and you know, the key there too is the people that were looking for gratitude weren't telling that to the people. The people doing their jobs at the clinic were doing the same thing, right?
Right.
They just recognized different things.
Yes. I remember back in the 90s when I had time and I would watch Oprah, and she started this daily gratitude. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I do remember the exercise was every night before you go to bed, identify 3 things you're grateful for, and you can't repeat it. So when you start writing it down in a journal, your 3 things every night, and you can't repeat, you can't say, oh, I'm thankful for my health, I'm thankful for, you had to like dig in. That was a big mind shift for me. So when he talks about cultivating gratitude, I think that you can do it. Even if you don't feel grateful, by just starting to do that, work that muscle, and and that's what he kind of said was it's like a muscle. You just keep working at it and it gets stronger and stronger and more prominent in your thoughts. It can be cultivated. You can start to be grateful.
And a thought that I had, and I think you and I talked about this, or maybe it was Janine, When I was reading the book on the airplane,
Yeah.
it reminded me two things, but it reminded me that sometimes gratitude, you can't just run up to somebody and say, thank you, I'm so thankful for you. It can be in actions too, right? And one thing is, so the little book, and we can post this in the notes, and I'll put it in our I'll put it in pictures in our social media too. But it's a little book of gratitude. It's a cute little book by Dr. Robert Emmons, and he has a larger book, but it's a cute little book, and it's a good read. Anyway, the man next to me, I could tell he was looking at, like, what is she reading there? Because I'm taking different notes. I'm reading it on the plane. And after we landed, he didn't mention the book, but he saw it. And he said to me, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought. He said, that's the first time I've ever been on a plane. And I tell you, was at least 65, 70 years old. I said, really? You haven't flown on a plane yet? He said, no. He said, that was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I'm very grateful to have you as my neighbor on the plane, because you were really a good plane neighbor, and it calmed, I felt calm the whole time. And I thought, whether it was a little bit abroad, I didn't chat with them.
Yeah.
People don't really like to chat on planes, but I was kind, it was,
Right.
and it was after he said that, I thought, it's interesting. I'm going to do a little not a study, but kind of my own little study. You're not going to be able to say something to everybody you see, but on that trip coming in, and when I came home yesterday, I made eye contact with almost everybody that was working, whether you can't yell across when somebody's filling the luggage, but I made eye contact and I smiled. And I'm telling you, everybody smiled back and had this. It wasn't like we have to smile. It's like, oh, it's just this little act of kindness. And then for the crew, thank you. Thank you for that. And it was genuine. Or for if they did something. And I'll tell you, it made a huge difference, but it wasn't always saying the words, but I went out of my way to make eye contact, to chill make sure that I was the person that was chilling the heck out, right? Rather than people being uptight. And I would tell you, it was appreciated. And I got the same gesture back.
Nice. And that feels good.
Right.
It feels good when you give and when you receive gratitude. It all feels good, or kindness.
So here's another little thing. My brother, who lives in Arizona, I get a text from him every morning and every night. And I know that his daughter does, and my other brother does. And he just says, sometimes it might just be good morning, good night. A lot of times it's very much appreciative. Thank you for taking Kylan to Remsen. She had a lot of fun. Thanks for you and Garrett staying with us. But just him taking the time to send that text to say good morning makes me feel like he's grateful for being my brother. There's something just about sending that text. He doesn't say every day, I'm grateful for you, but the act of taking the time, and me knowing I'm in his inner circle, and that it's worth the time to say good morning and good night to me, because we don't live by each other. And again, I tell you, 80% of the time it's good morning, have a nice day, good night, and then we'll add little things, we'll start a conversation. But to me, that's an act of gratitude. I feel there's an attitude of gratefulness that he takes the time to do that. It's a simple act.
Right. Oh, I love that. Like, just that constant connection,
Right.
that constant, I'm thinking of you. You're on my mind today.
Right.
I hope you have a good day. It's just like, I love that. Is that him messaging right now?
I don't know. So, technology, I'm like, stop. Hold on. Sorry. It is not him messaging. Literally, I usually wake up to his message, because he works in the school system. So they typically have an early start. So it's usually, he'll say good night. And I'm like, oh, it's like 7:00, but that's okay.
Shutting down for the night.
If our teams are playing for football, we can go back and forth on that. But anyway, my point is, there's a lot of ways to show gratitude without always, the words are great, like we said, being specific, but you can still be grateful for the people, right, that are doing things. And I think the attitude, it just calms everything down and takes away the stress in jobs or situations too.
Right. And I like the approach that gratitude doesn't have to be thank you, I appreciate you. It can go beyond that. It can just be the kindness, the eye contact, the I see you,
Right. The
it's just a
smile,
I
the
see
shake of
you,
the
I see
head.
what you're doing. Yes, it's that authentic. And I will say, I don't think you can do that without actually feeling gratitude. Like you can't give nonverbal gratitude signals unless in your heart you truly feel gratitude.
Right.
So that would be the challenge. If you don't feel gratitude, you can't fake it.
Right.
Then it feels fake. We know, we can feel it.
You
Uh,
know.
okay, so let's wrap this up with what's the real and the ideal when it comes to gratitude.
Well, I mean, the real is gratitude matters and has a huge impact. The attitude of gratitude of, the very beginning of his book, he talked about that there are 24 strengths that humans have, love, hope, kindness, creativity. But the single best predictor of a good relationship and well-being is gratitude. And I think that's the real. I think science, everything proves it, but we also know it by living it, right?
Right. Right. And
Maybe
I
that's the ideal. Sorry, but gratitude, I don't know. There's, is it
yeah. Good question. Good
hard?
question. There it can go either way. I think the real is sometimes when you're in a bad situation, you're going through something hard, it is hard to find gratitude. But like Mr. Rogers always said, look around for the helpers because if there's something bad happening in the world, there's also all these people who jump in and help, and we can be thankful for that. And I think about when my dad passed away, I have vivid memories of certain people saying certain things to me that I'm so thankful for. And I remember the neighbor, my parents' neighbor, she brought over tissues and paper plates and napkins and like paper products for the gathering of people, but tissues were part of that. I was like, oh my gosh, I am so thankful for that. So I think the real is sometimes it's hard to recognize what to be grateful for.
I think the real is there's a lot of people who don't want, they like to be negative, right?
Yeah.
We live in a world that negativity is applauded, right? And it's easier to throw
Like,
out a negative than a positive, and to not look for the gratitude to complain. Sometimes it's easier to complain than to show gratitude. So you got to rise above it.
right.
Even when you're telling stories in your mind, because we live in a world full of humans, and wouldn't it be great if everyone showed gratitude? But it's much easier to complain.
Yeah. It's more celebrated
It's
to
more
complain.
celebrated, and you
I
can,
think
it's
people
easy to
latch on.
find and point out, and people jump on the bandwagon.
Right. Right.
So let's do the bandwagon of gratitude instead.
Right. Let's celebrate the good stuff. I would say the ideal is consistently what you said, like let's consistently celebrate gratitude. And the ideal is that it can really shift your perspective and everything and you can cultivate it. I think that's the ideal is cultivating it in your life. And so I think you and I are both pretty grateful people. Uh,
We are, but we are,
yeah.
but I'd say it's sometimes I think it's even the little things and the people around us, and we need to wrap up really quick. Like
Yeah.
my husband, when he picked me up, he walked the dog every day I was gone. And part of my mindset went to, oh, now you know how it feels like, because it's really a big time sucker. But instead, I'm like, thank you for walking the dog and
Yeah.
giving him those long walks, because he's like, yeah, I walked him the full hour every day. Boy, that's a lot of work. But I wanted to go to see what I go. And then he turned
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
and said, I really will know and appreciate what you go through, because it is a lot of work. So it's easy to kind of go negative with the people close to us, isn't it? And
Yeah.
that's not even negative, but it's just, that was my go-to in my head.
Yeah. 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 Completely agree.
So
So
the
it's
deal is not just the workers, but the people in our lives, because it's too easy not to recognize this and be grateful for the small things.
right, exactly. Don't bring the baggage into your gratitude.
Right. Don't bring the baggage into your gratitude. Don't always be trying to fix them, right?
I think that's the real.
We're going back to the real again.
All right. Well, Sandy, thanks for this conversation. Always good to see you and talk to you.
I'm grateful for you, Amy.
I'm grateful for you too. Thanks, Sandy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.